Sure. So it's important that we look at what is the task that we have to do, what are the risks, and what are the controls. So tell me what is the task that you all do? I'm not talking about the safety arena. I'm just talking in general. What's your task that you have to do? It's 2 o'clock. I'm half asleep too. I didn't get my coffee yet, so. You got to come to practice. When you get to practice, is there any risk?
Yep.
What's the risk?
Getting hit in the head with a football.
Getting hit in the head with a football. Right.
Weather.
Getting stuck on a lift. Getting stuck on a lift. Let's get out of. What about your film? You got to capture the film. What kind of risk do you have there? All right.
SD card error.
SD card. So what kind of controls do you have in place?
New card.
Lord, new card. No, maybe you might have people filming in several different directions, so at least you have a backup piece of film. Or if it's actually a game and not a practice, then you might collaborate with Marilyn and say, hey, I have some of this film in this particular area, right? That's what we're going to kind of focus on. Go ahead, Sheila. So I have this film I want to show you. We're going to talk about golf carts a little bit in a different way than I did last year, but I'm going to start with this little incident here. So go to 1:48 a.m. Start it back up. Back up. I think you went too far.
Oh, because this is what happens.
Yes, this is what happens. Back up just a little bit. So this is actually on UNC Chapel Hill's campus, and I'll show you exactly where it is in relationship to the stadium.
This is when it starts. You want me to go forward?
Yeah, no, that's good. I don't know if you can see in the upper center, there was just this little flash right there. This happened to be a quiet night for us in our ER, because usually there's a lot more traffic going back and forth on these roads right here. Because there's no foot traffic, it's in early morning, nobody's noticed that a fire's broken out on campus itself. It's nice.
Fast forward a little bit.
Yeah. So of course this doesn't have any audio. This is from our Chapel Fire Department. They gave me the video clip the next day after we were investigating this. So you can see it starts to get a little bit bigger. They're actually not called until 1:48 a.m. and the first fire truck arrives at like 1:52 a.m. And this gets a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. I think Jake Farr might have been the one who started this fire out there that day.
Is that the car you used that day?
Might have been next.
So it ends up having multiple explosions, and I'll explain that here in just a second. You can go ahead and flip back to the other,
PowerPoint.
to the regular slides. So the fire happened, so this is the stadium, and the fire happened right here in this area. And if, unlike ECU or NC State and all these other bigger schools, you know, our football field is in the middle of campus. So this is where all our tailgating would happen in those particular areas. So all that is the foot traffic that would walk to the stadium itself. So what happened was a golf cart actually started a fire. They had plugged it into the charging station, but nobody ever inspected the golf cart at all. So The insulation on the red wire right there was broken. It hit the metal, it started to spark. Go to the next slide. And this is what the end result was. We have multiple golf carts that were caught on fire. Go back one first. So basically, it wasn't set up right, or where you were putting them for the charging station. And then there's little outside propane heaters, like you go to a nice little restaurant and sit on the street. Well, they decided to put all that out there too. So that's where all the combustion came. So once the little spark happened, one golf cart caught on fire, then the next one caught on fire, then the bigger booms was all the propane tanks. Boom, 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 boom. So it took until 5 a.m. actually to put that fire out. Okay. So of course, immediately the next day, we still have fire crew on the scene, still trying to do an investigation, and immediately EHS gets called. All right, you need to go out there and check all the golf carts that are used across campus. And so this is what we found. How many of you have your golf cart charging station that looks like this?
Mine doesn't sit on a bucket.
Okay, next picture. How many of you have like the insulation tape because you can see the frayed cords and keep putting tape around? Next, how many have it set up? You did build this nice little wooden box to set the charger on. Charge golf carts. Yeah, possible. All right. How many of you have gas operated golf carts and you just leave the?
Oh, we don't leave it open like that. We got gas carts though.
All right. So EHS, we do go out and we do inspect all the areas across campus now. When we inspect the work zone, we don't go to every piece of equipment we have, but after this fire, unfortunately, it's a reaction. So now we have to make sure we're checking every golf cart, make sure you keep the gas cap back on, make sure it's being stored properly. So immediately we send out another alert. The alert starts this way. You can go to the next slide. And basically it talks about combustible material must be at least 3 feet away from the charging station of the golf cart. Because if it's called hydrogen gas, all it needs is a little bit of spark to start the fire. The other thing is in North Carolina, and you'll see at the very bottom, I have North Carolina fire prevention codes. And remember last year I told you you had other regulations on top of other regulations, so you had to look at your each area to see what was needed. And we also require a 5-pound PVC fire extinguisher to be within 20 feet of the golf cart. That's not where all our golf carts are, to make sure that we have that.
Is that on parking or is that at all times?
When it's
parked?
When you park,
Okay.
it should be at least 20 feet away. All right. And make sure you do, preventive maintenance. So you all are probably saying, well, we just ride the golf carts, right? You just have to get to the building. That's a maintenance job. All right, well, keep that in mind as we go further on. All right, so the task is we've got to charge the golf cart. The risk is we could have a big fire, and we could control it if we have the right charging station in place and we make sure that we don't have it around combustible material. So now let's switch gears back to fall protection. So I heard a little bit today, and I don't know if it was the Liberty Bowl that was the one that they didn't have fall protection in place. And so I know there was a bunch of emails that were sent around and whatnot, and C-Luke was sending a bunch of stuff. He's like, what are they supposed to do? I'm like, well, they really should check the place out and make sure that there is fall protection, because that's a huge risk. So I guess a lot of you were filming on platforms that had no guardrails, no fall protection in place. That's a big risk, right? But you filmed anyway, right? Because we had to capture the camera. All right? So you know what the task is, you know what the risks are. Surely want to find any kind of control. Okay, go to the next one. So next, so last year, your conference is in May, and in July is the SHEMA conference, which is Campus Safety and Health Environmental Management Association. And we had this new vendor that came to our association. And he talked about these new guardrail systems that they have in place. And this new system has 2 things. If you have a building that you can't permeate the roof, this system right here doesn't do that, but still meets all elevation requirements. You can also have the kind that does permeate. But what's more important, hang on a second, is like most buildings, you have aesthetic issues. So that yellow guardrail, and you don't want to see that. Now, you can have it painted in any color if you want it. But still, a lot of schools will not come that and have a certain look for their campus. So here's the unique thing that this one has. It's called a higher rail. So what you can do is when you go up there, you have a like a 6-foot bar, and you'll hit on the little latch. You'll crank it one time, brings the railing up. They'll provide you that fall protection for that temporary use that you need it for. And then when it's not used, you can put it right down so nobody can see it from the aesthetic standpoint. So I talked with them and I said, okay, well, I'm curious to see how much this is going to cost me to put at UNC. So I see Jay Klein laughing. Here we got the law library right there, and these are the two fields right here. On this side and back this way are Navy fields, and this is the lacrosse field and field hockey field. And so that, remember last year I talked about the coach wanting to get up there because he had some new technology and they wanted to see the speed or whatever, but they couldn't film from that roof. Well, this one particular company, what they can do is they'll take, the Google map. They'll look at where you're talking about. They'll ask you how to get up to that roof, what's your access to it. Then they'll come up with their little schematic diagram. They'll tell you how much you need, and they can put that in place. Now, for me to get to there, all I need is to put a guardrail system in place. So how many people are actually have a flat roof that they're filling off? I think there was a few people who said that last year and had no protection whatsoever. Is that true? No protection? All right. Are you using tails where you're putting on a harness? No. So you have a guardrail in place. Okay. All right. Maybe those schools are not here this year, but anyhow, we already know that working at heights is a high risk. Severe injury or death due to those falls. And all we have to do is provide proper fall protection. So for that building, for us to add a guardrail system, a simple guardrail system that doesn't require any type of PPE, doesn't require any other type of training, was less than $3,000. Pretty affordable, right? And easy control. Okay? So now I'm going to kind of do the shock and awe, the liability. So we talk about tasks, the risk, and the controls. So in 2012, I actually was asked to do a talk at several universities in the UK and attended some of their talks. And one of the things that they had in place that they were really worried about, and they wanted to, talk about what the U.S. was doing, is they have this thing called corporate manslaughter. And corporate manslaughter says that if somebody is injured, that not only would, and I'll put this in university terms, chancellor, the dean, the provost, down to the athletic director, down to the coach, down to you all as video director, would be held liable if somebody was injured, and they could sue you. So in around 2009, universities really got a wide awakening when a UCLA chemist was charged. So I don't see any of the LA schools in here. So this was a huge thing. This is the first time in the U.S. that they talked about charging somebody, criminal charges for someone being injured on the job. In his particular case, he had a researcher who was working in his lab. This was a chemistry lab. And he claims he went over proper protective equipment and what the procedure was, but there's no documentation. So remember last year we talked about how important it is to have your documentation that you did your lift training or whatever other training you did. If you don't have that documentation, then you didn't do it. So there was no documentation whatsoever on this. The school, UCLA, has paid millions and millions of dollars in this particular case. The girl ended up dying. She had a burn to her body, but if she had had the right PPE on, the burns would have been minor and probably could have lived from it and had some scarring, but would have lived. Instead, she lost her life. This is the principal investigator. So this is the direct supervisor of that employee in the lab. So again, he had to defend himself in criminal court, not to end up going to jail. So this is the first case. And he ended up having this huge fine. I believe this was like $250,000 he had to pay out of pocket, his own pocket. It's not counting what UCLA paid, and it's not counting what workers' comp paid or any of that. These are additional costs. And then he also has to do, I think, over 1,000 hours of community service on proper laboratory safety. So that's a huge risk to say that I train you on how to use the lift, but I don't have any documentation. Or we go to, let's say, a bowl, and you let the people get up there, and there's no fall protection in place. So I'm not sure how much you're willing to take that risk, but I know that I'm not, because I have a family, I have things I want to do in life, I want to go travel and do other things, so I don't want everything taken away from me. So how many people have heard about Bumblebee? Bumblebee 2. This was just in the news the last 2 weeks. Thank you. I think I have somebody awake back there. Last 2 weeks. So what happened here was there was a worker who went into their steamer where they cooked the tuna, right? The next group of employees came in, didn't know the worker was in there, pushes more tuna into the steamer, locks the door, and he's killed. Burned to a little crisp. Problem there was, obviously, they didn't do any lockout, tagout procedures, so somebody would know that someone was in there actually servicing the piece of equipment. But the reason I'm pointing this one out is, even though this one's still in California, they're actually imposing criminal charges, not only on the company, which has now already paid $1.5 million in the last 2 weeks, but they're also going after the supervisor and the safety supervisor, who apparently was no longer working there, but had worked there at the time. So they're all facing 3 years of imprisonment and a $250,000 fine if this goes through. So have I poked a little fear into you a little bit? Just a little, just a little. Darby, I had you last year, right? Now it's a little bit more this year. Well, the only reason I'm saying this is I think that they're now starting to take safety to a different level. In other words, they're trying to make these incidents be catalysts to make us be more motivated. And what's going to motivate you more than actually going to jail for something and then having to pay some kind of fine? And this is, again, what the UK has been doing for years. They've been trying to get this corporate manslaughter overturned, and it's yet to be overturned. So there was somebody who said the other night, it was kind of funny that, it takes 2 people in the UK to hold up an A-frame ladder anytime they're working on that A-frame ladder. And you kind of understand why now they have that, because fear is there. You don't want to lose your job. And now it's starting, and California is known to be a little more, more open in terms of everything should be safety fixed this way, or you can charge you this for that. So if it continues, and this is momentum, it's going to get worse. So all I'm saying to you all is look at what your tasks are, look at what your risks are, and see how you control it. So Darby and I was talking a little bit at the break, and if you've been to a ball game and you found that there was a problem with that game, you didn't have your place, maybe ESPN pushed you out of your area, or maybe they gave you an area that didn't have grilling, then network with the next school. Put in some little posting where you all can share that information so you can be better prepared when you get there to that facility. And then don't overlook it, because there's a big chance that there could be an incident. And if there's an incident, you really don't want the black eye on yourself as the video director, nor on your school.
Would you recommend reaching out to the bowl committee? So there's the bowl committee, the whoever runs the stadium. Like I was in a bad one last year. I'm not sure if Chris showed you the pictures. I was in Orlando, whatever their stadium was. In the sideline, ESPN is the only group, and there were probably 12 or 15 of us on this platform that had any kind of fall protection. I didn't think twice about it because there was a guardrail, but I didn't think about how high it was. Now on the side, in the end zone, my end zone filmer in Clemson and Oklahoma also filmed there, like a few days prior to us. But in the end zone, as you're facing the field on the left-hand platform, if you took a step back, you're falling 6 feet. But we didn't have options.
Right.
So basically, or is it the local
So my saying to you.
Health and
is you
safety
should-
folks.
You should reach out to all of those groups.
Okay.
To figure out where it is that you're supposed to work at. If you don't, and one of your people has fallen off that, believe me, all those other people wouldn't be held liable as much as you would have been, because you stuck them up there in the first place.
Right.
So that's really the point. You're gonna have to call, you're gonna have to talk with each other, communicate. So we heard earlier, communicate, so you can make sure that you're providing a safe environment.
In that situation, you get to the stadium, you see that, do you go, who do you go to, like, who do I go to from my standpoint? Who do I talk to? Do I talk to somebody from my university first? Do I find somebody from the stadium? I mean, what should my chain of command be on that?
I would say it might vary from school to school on how, I would think that, Chris is not in here right now, but at UNC, he probably would be told you need to take care of it yourself. So he would directly go to whoever the stadium is and talk to them about it. Your school might want you to work through your athletic director first before you start communicating. You know, everybody has their nuances, how they want that done. So I would figure out how it was in your own school before you did it. But what I'm saying too is that I did talk to this company and asked them, is it portable? Now, those guardrail systems, you could tote around and put them, they're not too heavy. I was able to pick them up myself, so they're not too heavy, but that's not really the best solution for a temporary situation. Another one that you can use in like in construction, I don't know if you've ever seen a construction site, they'll usually have this little yellow boot. It'll be about this tall. You'll put 2x4s and 4x4s in it, and you can make a temporary. I showed a picture last year, one that we did as a temporary solution until they got the permanent railings in. So you might could carry that around if you have that situation, but with that one, you would have to permanent the roof, so you would have to know and get it into the roof itself. So it just depends. I think really what's important is one, you know, if ESPN and I'm not trying to dish them, but I have seen them where they pushed other people out. So they're making sure their people will provide a safe area. Well, they understand that liability. Somehow we've got to do it on our side, on the collegiate side, that we can't keep pushing us out. We need to make sure our people are safe too, in the areas that we have to get to.
So how much, like one concern I have is the view and the lack of education by the administrators and the other people in the department about what it is we're actually doing. So how can we better inform them about it? Because 9 times out of 10, what I run into is, oh, it's no big deal, just you'll be fine. You know.
Just be
And
careful.
it's just, be careful, don't worry about it.
Well, you know,
And why is this a big issue? I don't have time to deal with this right now.
I would suggest in North Carolina, if I did the top 3 incidents, falls are number 1, machine guarding is the second one, that are the number 1 fatalities in the state of North Carolina. They're also number 1 as far as general injuries itself. So maybe if you, again, how many people actually collaborated with their safety person after last year that was here last year? Have them work with you to give you those stats that can show that information out to them, so that it makes it more real time. I know it's always hard for some schools to say, well, that's not happening in North Carolina, so we shouldn't have to do it. Well, it can happen in North Carolina. This is why we need to be more proactive. And then that's why I was talking about this guardrail system here. Try to think of what kind of solutions. So again, working with your safety person, they might be able to tell you some solutions that you can come to your main administration and make that kind of difference. Giving them the info, giving them the cost. I was amazed how much this costs. It's really truly cost effective in the grand scheme of things. Getting, let's just say, getting tie-off systems on the roof where you can hook up a fall protection system. That's, 50, 60, 70,000, keeps cranking up depending on how much you need. So 3,000 is pretty affordable. But again, that's only for a flat roof situation, not a picture. So I think you just have to, kind of keep communicating that information to them. And then just keep going and keep going. And at some point, you're going to have to think as the individual, when do I have to stop the work? and then just stop the work. And they'll have to just understand.
And what kind of protection do you have from a university standpoint? When you basically say, I'm not going to do my job now because of this?
Well, from an OSHA standpoint, you're fully protected. They cannot take anything, any actions against you. And I will say that 2 weeks ago, we had a surprise OSHA inspection. The OSHA inspector came in and he says, I get called in and he wants to look at a particular building. It's a brand new building we have on campus. And we're like, sure, that's fine. We'll take you over there. Do you know what floor you need to be on? And it was a research lab, so there's 10 floors to that. He didn't have any, there was no specifics. And he said, well, you can't retaliate. First thing out of his mouth is you can't retaliate to an employee. We're like, well, you don't even know which employee you're talking about. You know how many employees we have here? We have over 18,000 employees. So how would we retaliate? Besides, we want to fix this. That's our mission. So you are protected under OSHA. It's not really called the Whistleblower Act, but it's in that same form.
So how can, I guess expand on that, so my fear would always be, oh yeah, well, we're not firing you for that. It's because you've actually been really terrible and it had absolutely nothing to do with the fact you don't want to go up on that roof or whatever.
Well, I can say I have that fear all the time as a safety professional working there if I'm stopping somebody's job. I mean, you think about somebody who's making, let's just say the coach doesn't want me to stop the filming. I can stop the filming. Now, could the university try to fire me? Well, they might, because the coach is pissed off at me because I stopped the filming. They have to have big grounds in why they fire me. And as long as I've done my due diligence in my job, the way I feel about it, I do a good job, I work every day, I work really hard. They don't have any reason to fire me if I'm trying to protect the university. So I think you just kind of have to have your head in that mindset. I'm not saying that you go in there to be argumentative with them. You just really need to come up with, working with your safety person, some kind of solution that you might can fix the problem. And then there's just times that you may not be able to just do the filming if you can't fix that particular area. Things that are in your control, your own stadium, you really have no excuse for it. But again, when you're visiting or you're at these balls, I understand that there's a bigger problem there. And I'll keep, on my own end, I'll keep researching. Like I talked to this vendor, I said, look, you have a great opportunity to design a new, engineer a new piece of equipment that can work for these people. So I know that I talked to 2 higher level people at that particular company. So I think they're probably going to look for something. They definitely know that there's a need out there. So maybe in a year or so, we might have some better stuff too in terms of fixes. I know it's a hard thing when the safety part of this, but in the end, you have to think about yourself and you have to think about who you have working with you. And as Liz was saying, you want to kind of be friends with everybody you work with, but then you have to also be the boss. But I'm going to tell you on the flip side, at this point, you really need to be your friend. You really want to call that person's parent, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, father, and say they died on your job because there wasn't any final protection in place, or whatever the case may be. I don't think I would want to do that. Not even as a safety professional. I don't think I would want to have to make that particular call.
All right, back on the golf cart.
Back on the golf cart.
Yeah, because I had this happen last Friday.
Oh,
We had like 3 gators and 2 golf carts and stuff on our practices. One of the gators was mine. Do we need insurance on our gators?
You probably should have some kind of property insurance.
Okay.
I'm not telling you you have to, but I would think
But you should.
But you should.
And second, they took one of the gators, joyriding. And if they would have got hurt, we would have been responsible for that.
Yes,
Because we didn't have chains on the gators.
because you didn't have a security, right? So we talked about that with the scissor lifts, and do we leave the key in the lift? So at that point, what they'll do is they'll file a tort claim against the university.
Even though they were wrong.
Even though they're in the wrong. I mean, what society do we live in this day? We're in a sue-happy society. People don't want to take responsibility for themselves, even if they're in the wrong. Even if they're in the wrong.
We still
Yeah. So, you need to make sure you've done, really done your due diligence to prevent it from happening in the first place. If not, yes.
All
And then
right.
it depends on how your local media or the national press might do, because my gosh, UNC's been beaten up left and right on any little thing. I mean, if they found out, oh, the football office left, didn't have X amount of golf carts secured, now the pedestrian on X street on the main campus was not there because so many drunk driving golf carts were going by.
How should we secure it? Like right now, I have to change around the stadium.
Well, is your stadium like an open stadium? Is that what
No,
they're
they jumped the fence.
So they jumped the fence. So I think in your particular case, you had it secure
Okay, so
because they jumped the fence, right? But like for us at our stadium, it's open at all times unless 2 days before a game and then it's closed off. So if we're a public university, you've got to have access to everything. But if you had it secured that way, then that would be okay.
we should have changed.
Had he had the chain and they cut the chains off, he still had it secure.
He still had it secured, right? Right. All right, any other questions? Don't want to be doom and gloom, but
I was saying to Janelle that this spring we grounded a lift for a practice that we were doing at our stadium. We almost never go to our stadium, and we have to have a lift for a second end zone at our stadium. And we got all kinds of, the defense gets fucked again. This, this, that, and the other. I know that I'm not the only one that ever hears that, but it's things like that where it's like, I'm not calling people today. So we came up with a creative solution, but it was, where we weren't being put at risk at that point. So
3 weeks ago in North Carolina, with the state agency, it's not with the university, but with another state agency, there was a lift that was used. There was a fatality with that lift. They're still doing the investigation. This particular guy that used the lift was 1 month away from 30 years service and then retirement. He just bought his house at the beach that he'll never be able to use. And right now, the preliminary inspection of it seems that he's upgraded some of the system so that he didn't have to, it took a little more time to set it up right, so he started doing some overrides to it. And then the lift actually fell. So we've had that just in the last 3 weeks with that particular thing. And then the surprise ocean inspection, and then another tort claim thing with safety will be called in and has to, that's in the last couple of weeks here in North Carolina. So just make sure for your protection, talk about the golf cart and the security of it. It's got to change, they got the fence, they're in a fenced area, it's not open to the public, that's security. We're training your employees, documenting your training. That ocean inspection that I was talking about, we were there for 6 hours. When the ocean inspection comes in, they get to stay as long as they want. I will say that the constituents of the building was a little bit upset with EHS because we're with the ocean inspector. But at that point, once we walk in the building, we cannot have any conversations other than to say, hey, Alex, this is such and such from the North Carolina Department of Labor. They're here to do an ocean investigation. And that's the end of the conversation that we have. They can ask you whatever. They can pull you to the side. We usually take pictures while they're taking pictures so we know. But the thing that saved us on this particular ocean inspection was every person in that particular area could pull their training records. If you asked specifically for it from the EHS office, when we got back, he wanted their OSHA logs for the last 3 years. We gave that to him within 5 minutes, pulled it from our database. Asked for other information, wanted a copy of the training programs that we did provide those particular employees. They're like, they're here, they're open to the general public. Test is not because you have to go into our secure server, but we can print their test for you. We did all that. So again, that documentation is what saved us from being any kind of citation.
2 questions. One, we do lift safety training with our on-campus safety person, and we have to do, if we do the lift safety training, the classroom portion, he says we have to do the hands-on portion within 3 days, which is fine. If I were to not in the thought if I did not have a lift that year, but I was trying to be proactive for bowl season, could I do it with a lift that was, say, not one that they may be using at the bowl site, but it is a scissor lift of some kind? Would that be sufficient to be used? So basically, there's another lift on campus. There's a group on campus that always has a lift. If we trained on that lift for the hands-on portion, would that suffice? As I never asked him. It was just a question I had.
Right.
And the
But
second,
I'm gonna turn to Jaquan here, like if you went, and we're pretend like we're going to Charlotte to do this high school, you know, little get-togethers, whatever, you know. When you get to that lift, what's the first thing you're supposed to do?
Like, we always have to check it, because we don't have a routine check
Right.
as preliminary like we do normally. But I feel like as long as it's a scissor lift and as long as it's fully functional operation, we can start.
So he's looking at that operation manual. I'm with them, they'll invite me, and they'll pull out that manual. And as long as you're trained on one scissor lift, it's okay. But they're all different, you can get that
Right.
out. So some, will have joysticks, some will have buttons with their enable button. But again, the main thing is to look at the lift and what its safety requirements are. In general, most all of them will say like 26 mile per hour wind, they have to come down. There are a few that are a lot lower than that. So as long as they look at that manual and they do their pre-check, like he's saying, make sure everything's functional, we should be fine.
second question, you're talking about the training records, because the safety officer grabs our training records. He has a record. Do I also need to have something in my office of that? Because you're saying always have documentation, always have documentation. If he has the documentation, is that far enough, or do I need to actually have a binder of documentation in the office?
I think it depends on your relationship with your safety office and how the system is. So for us, we have a compliance portal. So Jaquan can log in as himself, and he can pull his entire training history of everything that we provided to him, and he can give that to the inspector. CLU can go into that compliance portal and then look for everything for all of his 10 to 12 students and pull one comprehensive report.
If I don't have a portal, would you say then to keep?
If you didn't, then I would suggest that, yeah, you did keep a backup.
Okay.
I mean, again, it depends on how good your relationship is with your safety office and how good your safety office is doing. Are they really doing their due diligence? Because that is going to be the information that they're going to ask for. I just happen to know, from our system, doing part of the database building part, we try to make it as customer friendly as possible so that anybody can get that information. For us, having the ocean inspector and having those people pull it right then was to show that whole communication that we have with them. I can pull the same information, they can pull it, otherwise, most of the time the ocean inspector might just say, I'll get it from the main EHS office. We had this years ago, probably about 15 years ago, with the dental school who claimed that EHS had their blood from pathogen training records, and we did not have any of that. So we couldn't prove that they had the training, and we only had the documentation of us saying, look, you need to send us the documentation that you had that training. So it's always good to keep a backup.
Matt, what I do personally is we have lift check sheets and weather reports that all my lift operators fill out, which if anybody needs a copy of, I'd be glad to send it out as a template for you. Just hit me up after the show. But what I do is I keep everybody turns their lift sheets in at the end of the day. I sign them off, keep them in a binder. Then at the end of the season, what I do is I just batch scan them to PDF and save them. So I get to come back and, hey, we need to see your lift reports from 2010. I have a folder on my server that I just pull it up and just show the documentation.
Okay.
Just, well, they're supposed to do a lift check sheet every
No,
time.
you didn't just ask that question.
Yeah. I don't know.
All right, here's that file.
Yeah, so they're supposed to be doing a lift check sheet every time a lift operator, whoever's operating the lift, not me, it's whoever's operating the lift, has all these different check sheets, their checklists they're supposed to go through. So they go through that before they get the lift each day, they sign off on it, I sign off on it. And then just as an additional, this is not required by law from my understanding, but just as additional safety thing, what I do is I have a weather report they fill out. So they take a wind reading when they get up in the air. If they have a 5-minute break during practice, they take another wind reading, and then they take a wind reading when we get down. So that way, it's documented that it's only 2 miles an hour wind, it's sunny outside, you know what I mean? Yeah, they sign on that says this lift is in operational order, this is the weather that day, and I have that for every lift operator for every day from us.
So it's the same thing. If I asked you, if I came out and did an inspection, and I'm like, okay, I want to know if you've trained your people, that would be first, I would ask. I pull that record. Next thing I'm gonna ask, show me your pre-inspection. If you don't have that, then I don't think you have a program. That's how an ocean inspector would operate. So Jake wanted them to know about doing those forms every time. And I know it's kind of a pain, but we've had the experience where, you know, the lift we used to practice that morning was working, by that afternoon, the emergency descent would work it off. So there are reasons for checking it each time.
Or there's a screw in the tire that's slowly leaking air.
That's right.
Going back to the golf cart, you said it's in a locked fence area. We're not kind of responsible if they jump the fence and they were properly secured. Is it the same type of thing for lifts? If you have them in a chain locked fence area and somehow someone's able to come in and operate one?
For the lifts, there's a key to operate lifts. The key should never be on that lift at any point in time, unless you're actually operating it. So when you're through with practice, whatever your program is, everybody pulls those keys and they break them in and they check the keys back in. The key should never be on the lift. So there shouldn't be a operator. Make sure you do that as the biggest thing, as one of the #1 citations in North Carolina. You know, we had that the very first year right after the Notre Dame incident, and athletics says, hey, can you come out? The very first thing I came out, started checking out the stuff. And then the next day, I did a spot check, come back out, and the keys were on the lift. And I pulled every one of the keys, and my gosh, you can't keep the keys on the lift. So, and we're on a college campus, and we like to have fun. So somebody might get on there and like to go drive the lift around. There are some, if you YouTube videos, you'll see a college campus where students have taken the lifts just to go get some gear somewhere.
Or that drunk guy.
I don't know how many people on this phone. The lifts I get when I get them, several can be started without a key.
Then don't accept the lift.
You reject them, tell them the thing, you take them back to one different.
Remember, when you get the lifts, if you're renting lifts to come in, you don't own them, and UNC is one that doesn't own them, so we rent them from a different company. You have to do your pre-inspection once they drop off that lift to make sure everything is operational. And if you can start it without the key, then don't accept that lift.
Try to do it with the truck driver there. That's what I've been doing lately, is when the guy, we're a little bit away from our stadium. I make it a point, I said, make sure you call me when you arrive. It's gonna take me 10 minutes to get there, so go ahead and take off the flatbed, but we're gonna walk around it, because I wanna see that we're good.
Right, you should do this as part of the ANSI standards, where they're the distributor. They're supposed to do that with you. I know that at UNC, we had a problem, the truck driver would not tell us when they would come, they just drop them off and think that was the end of it. So we talked to them about it, and their response to me was, I thought that was only for Research Triangle Park. And I'm like, why would it only be for that area, which is a big research area? I'm like, why only for that area? I said, this is not only North Carolina law, but this is federal law. You can't just drop this off. There's a liability to them too. If they can't show the paperwork that they've checked off everything and make sure it was operational, and someone gets injured, then they can be held liable too, because they don't have any proof.
Whose responsibility is it to do the lift intake? Is it the supervisor of who's gonna be using the lift? Is it so my facilities management, they're the ones that get the lifts. I have no idea if they're doing the So who's who's responsible for doing that drop off checklist?
If it's your facilities manager, they should be doing it. Okay. For us, it's one of the people in the video coordinator's office. That's their job to do that. Okay. So whoever it is, you just need to communicate. I would probably, if it's not your immediate direct staff, I'd probably ask for a copy of it. Yeah, you know that you have that.
One of the things I want is the goal set where you get to practice that they want, right there.
Say again, I'm sorry, this part of it.
Along the same lines of the inspections, we're gonna follow through. site, and you get there, whenever you get there, and the lift's already been ordered.
You still would do your operational, you can ask them for a copy, but you're gonna assume that they have done their pre-inspection when it was delivered, that it was operational. You certainly can ask them, but before your people get on it, you wanna make sure you're doing that same inspection checklist. And then you're keeping a copy of it, that you bring it back to your place, but you have that documentation that you've done that.
What can we do for safety checks for permanent towers? Mine is more like a light post, and on top, and it's basically a flat surface on top. The rails are permanent on top and around, and I'm up right through the center, close the hatch, good to go. What can we do as far as safety goes? What are the recommendations as far as, I was told that, hey, this thing's rated for 100-mile-an-hour wind, so we will never have any problems with them. What's the follow-up as far as testing the worthiness of those after the fact? I asked my office, the safety office, and they didn't have an answer for me.
Well, again, back to the Notre Dame thing, that was the first thing when we were called out. We're like, we have 2 permanent building towers. We need to have a structural engineer come back and reevaluate them.
Okay.
We had that done and evaluated with us. From our 2 permanent towers, which we had maintenance telling us, oh, they're fine, they can do this, blah, blah, blah. They weren't. We had a lot of deficiencies with it. As far as the guardrail system, it had a 42-inch rail, the stairs were covered, you could get all it, it looked fine, but structurally there was some integrity problems there. So we had to get some things fixed.
Outside structural engineer, not your engineering department?
Well, it depends. If you're university, with UNC, we have one structural engineer.
Mm-hmm.
And so she comes around, we'll work with her. Actually, I called her to come out when I was called to come out to look at those things. And then we did go with an outside structural engineer to do a more firm evaluation. She had already saw some issues, which athletics paid for, so that they could get them fixed and everything. So they should be evaluated. I wish, my comment after we got it, how can we tell? Should we look every, how many years should we reevaluate it? And they're like, just general maintenance, maybe come out every 5 years and look at it. Have them, if you have a structural engineer on campus, have them come and evaluate it a little bit.
Okay. So every few years, yeah.
So every few years. So we're on this little 5-year thing based on the changes that have been made. I
know after last year when we talked, or when you came and talked to us, first thing we did when we went back, I went to my building manager. I said, we need locks on all these towers. And some of them didn't have gates to prevent people from climbing the ladders. That was a big thing. So
I've not had to respond to any student on graduation with a bottle of champagne getting on top of the stadium with one point or one of these lifts, towers, or anything, because we got all those locks in place now. Any other questions? All right. Oh, wait.
I've got one. I've actually got a bit of a conundrum at our school. After the Notre Dame incident, our school, our environmental health and safety office talked a good game, but I think they're falling a little bit short. Who ultimately is responsible for lift trade? My environmental health and safety officers have told me that they want us wearing harnesses whenever we're doing anything with the lifts, which we do. But as far as any kind of formal training, that is the lift company's responsibility, and they're not going to touch it. On the other side, my lift company has told me on numerous occasions, we don't have anybody local that can do that is certified for the type of lifts that you have. They're 450 miles away in Vegas, and it's your responsibility to fly them in and pay for their expenses for coming forward to do some formal training.
So
where do I go from here?
Where do you go from there? So still going back to the UNC issue. Did we have anybody in EHS that was certified to do lift training? We did not at the time. Probably, honestly, we probably thought some lifts were being used, but we didn't know where they were being used in terms of athletics. Some of the other maintenance areas, we knew they could use manual propel lifts, and the companies were doing some training. So we did do an evaluation. At that point, EHS said, okay, we need to go for funding. We made a request, went to Vegas to get a couple people certified to do training. And when they do that training, they not only do the scissor lift, they do the knee lift and the telehandler, and that's okay. But it's definitely a really good training that's pretty in-depth as the safety person going into the field versus a distributor who's trying to sell a product.
I think some distributors do online training now as well.
Some do, but I guess I would probably want to know who your EHS person is and let me have a conversation with them and talk with them. Because really, our thing with athletics, it's not like we've never worked with athletics. They just didn't want to work with safety. We're on the same team, and they didn't perceive it that way until the Notre Dame incident. And when I got the call, I dropped everything I was doing to come right then. It was 2 hours before practice. Can you come right now? Can you tell us what I can do? And I'm like, here's my avenue to get the door open. At Chima last year, when I did my talk, and talked a little bit about the CSVA and what we've done here and some other things, it wasn't just solely about, I brought your book that you have, and it was passed around. I'm like, guys, we can't be standoffish as safety personnel. We have to work with the people out there. We have to understand what they value and see how we can figure out how to help them. And it sounds like in your particular case, I mean, I don't understand why they wouldn't want to do a lift training. Why they wouldn't want to send somebody on their staff to be certified to come out there and do the lift training. And like Darby said, there are a few companies that'll do it. I think like in North Carolina, I believe Sunbelt might do it. But Hertz and some of the others, they don't want to do it because they don't want the liability. So they're like, your company needs to train.
What about the train the trainer courses? What are your thoughts on those? Like I did that in Memphis where I was actually certified to be a trainer and certify my lift users instead of having somebody else come in and train them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
There's nothing wrong with that.
State of Indiana does that too.
We do that for a lot of things that are kind of unique. Because again, I don't want to put the safety office down. I mean, I just know UNC, we're a big school, so we have 55 people in our safety office. I know a lot of schools that only have 1 or 2 people in their safety office. So in your case, that might be what the issue is. They don't have enough staffing. Because again, the university might not value safety. We've been blessed at UNC that they do value safety. It's never been an issue in my entire tenure there. We get the funding that we need. We don't, generate revenues like you all do, but we get the funding we need if we see that there's a particular hazard, so we can get that fixed. Any other? All right, well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me come back again.
Thanks, Mary.